Number 10. The big fin squid. This deep sea creature will probably be in your nightmares tonight. Looking like a mix between spaghetti and the hair I pulled out of my shower drain this morning, this is the big fin squid. This creature was discovered only about 20 years ago and was first mainly noticed when a group of researchers had been diving to a shipwreck and seen the terrifying squid instead. It's known to live miles beneath the water's surface and seems to just float around in the water. They can grow around 6 meters long, with most of that being in its tentacles and arms, which scientists really don't understand. As the squid appears to just drift around, they're not really sure how it actually uses its tentacles. One thing they do know, however, is that these spaghetti noodles have microscopic suckers on them, which scientists theorize they use to catch prey that bump into them, and they then drag their meal along the sea floor. Number 9. The immortal jellyfish. If any of you out there are planning on discovering how to live forever, these so-called immortal jellyfish may be your ticket to success. When the jellyfish eggs hatch, they grow to full size in just a few weeks, but they don't grow very large. The average size of one of these creatures is only about the size of your pinky nail. So what makes these tiny little guys unique from all the other species of jellyfish out there? Whenever they become damaged or even begin to starve, they reverse back in the developmental process. If you think about the life cycle of a frog that you probably studied in school, they go backwards in this cycle, reverting back to their early stage of a polyp. They can then grow up again, genetically identical to the jellyfish that it used to be, or still is. They can also create clones of themselves, so while one may die, that same creature might still be floating around somewhere. Scientists are desperately looking into this process and how they do it, as they want to look into the medical applications of the jellyfish's abilities. Number 8. The Yeti crab. This fuzzy looking crab was only recently discovered in the mid-2000s, and it's got scientists baffled. They were discovered just south of Easter Island and appear to thrive around hydrothermal vents underwater. It's believed that they eat mollusks around the vents and also appear to grow bacteria on their arms by holding them over top of it so that they can then eat the bacteria later. These animals are also pretty stuck where they are. They are virtually blind due to their deep sea location and only seem to be able to live within very close proximity to the vents. If they wander even just a few meters away from the area, they're highly likely to die. Because of this, the Yeti crabs are typically seen hanging out in massive piles, sometimes up to 600 crabs per square meter, making pictures of these groups of crabs a little unsettling to look at. Not much is known about these guys yet, so it might be a while before we get some solid answers about just how they came to evolve to survive next to these hydrothermal vents. Number 7. Rangeomorph. This next one probably isn't one you've ever heard about or seen when you've been walking around. That's because this is a fossil that scientists are working hard to try and understand. It's referred to as an Ediacaran and has had researchers confused for years. So here's what we do know about this prehistoric creature. They were largely immobile and could grow to sizes larger than humans. It's especially unique as it's one of the first large multicellular organisms that seem to exist before the first real animals ever evolved. A scan of the fossils allowed researchers to look into the physical makeup of this creature. It had strange internal structures, including its cone-shaped central trunk and the 6 fern-like fronds extending out from it to form a primitive kind of skeleton. There's still a lot to do to figure out just what exactly this creature was, and it's hard to figure out as it disappeared an estimated 540 million years ago. Number 6. Crows. I know what you're thinking. Crows? Yes. Crows. While they may seem like simple avians that you hear squawking away during the day, there's a lot to these birds that scientists don't really seem to understand. The main one being that these guys are mean. Some people know that crows are extremely smart and can be trained to do tasks, as well as having built-in problem-solving capabilities. Well, it looks like they are putting their brains to use. It was discovered in a recent study that crows hold grudges. They can remember the faces of people who captured them and will still be mad about it up to 2 years later. Another interesting fact about that is that they will even pass on these feelings to their friends and family members and encourage them to attack specific people as well. So I think it's in the best interest of all of us to not go out and antagonize any crows. Number 5. The platypus. If you grew up watching Phineas and Ferb, then you're probably familiar with the mammal known as a platypus. But you're probably not familiar with just how strange and unique these duck beavers actually are. When looking at pictures, you might notice that a platypus is not actually turquoise like Perry, but is actually just brown. Well, if you put a platypus under an ultraviolet light, it will actually grow a blue-green color. But unfortunately, a cool hat doesn't immediately appear as well. They are probably best known for being one of only a handful of mammals that lay eggs, and for having a powerful deadly venom on their back legs. One other thing that you may not have known about these guys is that they give sharks a run for their money. And no, not in fighting each other, but I would pay to see that. Instead, it's in the way that they hunt. Even though they're mammals, they mostly hunt underwater, and they close off all their senses while they do so, only using their electrical signals and powers of electrosensitivity in order to find their prey. Number 4. The Argentine ant. If you think it's cool that you have friends all across the globe thanks to the internet, just wait until you hear about the massive global colony of the Argentine ant. They have managed to spread to every country except Antarctica and exist in massive underground colonies, even holding the record for largest known ant colony in the world, spanning across 6,000 kilometers. These invasive species have become a massive problem across the world as they appear to have been waging wars with different species of ants, taking over their ecosystems faster than you can say colonization. Due to the super colonies that these ants are capable of creating, they have strength in numbers, and their population just seems to be continuing to grow. When Argentine ants from the main large colonies were pitted against each other to see if they would fight, they actually seemed to recognize each other and engaged in a greeting. So let's just hope they're not planning on banding together and taking over Earth anytime soon. Number 3. Cows. I know, everybody has seen a cow before, so what's so weird about it? Well, cows do in fact have one large mystery amongst them that scientists are struggling to figure out. If you've ever driven past a cow field and seen that all the cows seem to be facing in the same direction, there's a reason for that. It looks to some researchers that cows are magnetic. They seem to prefer to stand and graze in accordance to electromagnetic fields, always seeming to stand in a north or south direction. Researchers took satellite pictures of tons of cows in pastures and noticed the similarities in the way that they all seem to align themselves. They also ruled out any other reasons for the cows standing in such a way, such as avoiding the heat, wind, or other elements. I would also choose to argue that aliens put magnets in the cows in order to more easily lift them up into their UFOs. But hey, that's just my theory. Number 2. The Greenland shark. There are tons of different species of sharks out there, and one of the apparently more abnormal and unique ones is the Greenland shark. They're a fairly new find, only first being photographed in 1995, and as a result, we really don't know much about them and have had some trouble explaining some of their behaviors. They can become the size of a great white, able to grow more than 20 feet long and weigh more than 2,500 pounds. They also seem to live a very long time, with the current estimate of their lifespan being around 400 years, and only seeming to reach maturity at the age of around 150. As they live in deep waters, they are often mostly blind and rely on their other senses, which is lucky for them as they can often fall victim to a parasite in their eyes, rendering the organs pretty useless. Their skin is also poisonous and can only be eaten after properly preparing it for months, a process which includes burying the meat in the ground, though I'm not sure why you'd want to go to such long lengths for a bite of shark anyways. Number 1. The axolotl. Probably one of the cutest creatures on this list, we're finishing it off with the axolotl. Fans of Minecraft are probably familiar with this little guy. The creature has many strange abilities which have left many people baffled. One of the most notable is probably its ability to completely regenerate lost limbs, as well as its heart, lungs, spinal cord, and even parts of its brain, and the tissue is regrown without even leaving any scarring behind. Scientists are also especially interested in this creature because they are incredibly resistant to cancer, and they're hoping to find a way to harness the axolotl's natural defense to the disease. They are only able to be found in Mexico, and despite having no major predators, are incredibly endangered, mostly having issues with other creatures eating up their resources. And the reason these guys are so cute is because they have a condition that allows them to keep most of their larval features, which causes them to look pretty similar to big tadpoles.
Number 10. NASA's flying frog. We'll kick this list off with one of my favorite photos from history ever. On September 13th, 2011, NASA's Leidy spacecraft lifted off from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Now, to witness a spacecraft take off and go to space, it's amazing, right? People travel across the country to hopefully catch a glimpse of this experience, right? Now, one frame of this specific launch, one photo here, shows an airborne frog. Just flying, he's spread eagle, just in the air, no idea how he got there. The team behind the launch confirms that this photo is real. Can you imagine what's going through his mind right now during this photo? In fact, what was he doing 5 seconds before this launch was ignited? Just sitting on a throttle booster, eating a fly. He's like, man, what can go wrong? Life, you know? If you ever have the chance to check out a NASA launch, keep your head up. It might rain frogs depending where you are. Number 9. Planet 9. With James Webb in the picture, we're seeing more of our universe now than ever. For a while now, astronomers have been confident about a 9th planet orbiting the sun. Now, this 9th planet is hiding far behind Neptune, so we haven't seen it, obviously. We've been here before, though. It's hard to tell the scale of these things. The largest asteroid in the solar system was discovered back in 1801, and that day it was initially classified as a planet. But just like Pluto, it was, kicked out of the planet party. Get out of here. You're too small for us. Must be this tall to be a planet. Peace. Talk about this 9th planet began in 2014 when American astronomer Dr. Scott Shepard, he found a small dwarf planet candidate called 2012 VP-113. And the orbit of this dwarf planet was too large. It didn't make any sense. Something had to be assisting this colossal spin. For the planet to be acting this way, it would have to be 10 times more massive than our planet here, Earth, and it would take at least 10,000 years to orbit the sun just once. So, Happy New Year, I guess. And considering that it's tucked far behind Neptune, this 9th planet is around 200 times further out than ours. So far, we've covered about 30% of the prime area this planet could be in, and every space fact that I do, I also feel so anxious right after. Holy smokes, space is so scary. Number 8. Bermuda Triangle of Space. Awesome, we love these. If you thought the Bermuda Triangle here on Earth was jarring, buckle up. Turns out they got one in space as well. Awesome, great. I feel the space anxiety in my chest today. A handful of astronauts have experienced this in real life while orbiting our planet. They call it the South Atlantic Anomaly, and it's part of the Earth's magnetic field, and many scientists have connected this triangle to the Van Allen radiation belts. So right above the South Atlantic, when the International Space Station passes through this area, computers often stop working, and astronauts will sometimes experience cosmic flashes in their eyes. That's terrifying. The Hubble has also glitched out when trying to take observations, so what's going on here in this weird triangle? Who knows? Maybe it's the Illuminati that Kanye's talking about. Number 7. Elst Pizarro. This next one is quite bizarro. First discovered in 1979, its orbit in the asteroid belt led to it being classified initially as an asteroid. Yet when it was examined more closely in 1996, it showed itself to have a tail like a comet. We love an evolving space rock, I guess. Keep changing, keep confusing us, sure. One possibility, maybe, there was a collision at some point and that crash ended up exposing some subsurface ice on the body, which is slowly now being lost to space. So now it's whipping by, which explains the new tail. Elst Pizarro was an asteroid and then a comet, and then once its layers have melted off, now it could be just a plain old boring asteroid. Again, we're not too sure here. Elst Pizarro got the zoomies for a hot minute, but we're not sure why. Experts had hoped to launch the Castalia spacecraft in 2028 to get a better look, but since 2016 the European Space Agency hasn't had any funding to give this project the green light, so we'll never know probably. Awesome. What's Elon doing? Can we send him up? Take a look. Number 6. Scotland Fireball. What's believed to be space junk belonging to Elon Musk, this fireball seen crashing down over Scotland and Northern Ireland has experts scratching their heads. The fireball was visible for 20 seconds around 10 p.m. on September 14th. Reminder, this was only a couple of months ago, so you might remember it. There were around 1,200 reports on the ball, including 10 videos. The UK Meteor Network wrote on Twitter the next day stating, quote, "We have checked the Starlink deorbit and it would have not have come anywhere near the UK. At this point we cannot find any known space junk or satellite deorbit that could account for this fireball. We are looking at the data again." End quote. This lasted 20 seconds, where a meteor would be much, much shorter. Any theories as to what this was? I know a lot of our viewers live around this area, so comment down below if you witnessed Optimus Prime's arrival 2 months ago. Number 5. Michigan Lights. If you're a fan of the series Unsolved Mysteries over on Netflix, this next one here should ring a familiar bell. March 8th, 1994, more than 300 911 calls were made, all of which were reporting strange lights in the night sky right along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. That is way too close to our home right now. That's terrifying. I was born in 1994 as well, so who knows? Maybe I was dropped off by aliens. These objects, these UFOs in question, were described as round like discs, or they were like floating spheres. Both jarring descriptions. They all had different colored lights as well, so planes are obviously out of the question. It's been so long now that the case has finally found its way to Netflix, so no, it is still not solved. Number 4, Steve. Nice, an unexplainable light in the sky named Steve. This sounds Canadian already. Back in 2018, this mystery came to light. There's a light in the sky in Canada, and scientists still have no idea what it is. All they know is that they call it Steve. Steve is short for Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement. Now, Steve's appearance, I can't lie, he is beautiful. He's gorgeous to look at. Steve looks like a white, purplish ribbon that stretches throughout the sky, almost like the Northern Lights, only scientists are sure that Steve is not an aurora. It's very hot and it doesn't last long. Classic Steve, doesn't last long, eh? Must be Canadian. Number 3, Hodges meteorite. Now these meteorites, they can happen pretty often, but luckily most of the time it doesn't wipe out everybody and everything. That's pretty good. Sorry dinosaurs, thanks for taking one for the team for us. Back in 1954, residents in Talladega County, Alabama, noticed a ball of fire heading towards them. Now, we didn't have Twitter, we couldn't warn people that maybe a meteor was about to hit and wipe us out forever, and we also didn't really know how to tell if meteorites were coming and how scary it was, so it was alarming. Especially for Anne Elizabeth Hodges, who got hit by that said space rock. Yeah, that ball of fire that we always see going through the sky, that hit her. It grazed her hip. Now you may be asking, was she outside stargazing at this point? Was she doing some cosmic ritual? No, she was napping in her living room, and then an 8-pound chunk of meteorite smashed through her roof and again, only grazed her hip. She got grazed by a meteorite and then received a bruise. First human to ever get hit by a meteorite, and probably the last. What a flex that is. Imagine putting that on Tinder. Number 2, go fast. Okay, a bit more modern now. This one was trending recently, but it was originally recorded back in 2015. It was part of that big alien leak that we got to witness over the pandemic. That was fun. That was just what we needed. Middle of a pandemic, the news is like, hey, check out these UFOs also. We don't know. Good luck. Now what you're seeing here is an FA-18 Super Hornet following a UAP. Now we don't call them UFOs anymore because that's so M. Night Shyamalan, alright? We don't do that. We call them UAPs. Also sounds a little smarter. US Navy personnel caught this UAP flying along the East Coast, and there was no exhaust, there was no wings, just a really fast sphere, almost like I mentioned earlier. A 45-foot long egg, 25,000 feet above the Atlantic, just whipping, and it flew away, and nobody saw it ever since. Do we think UFOs are balls like spheres? I think that's the new thing. We went from discs to spheres. Finally, number 1, Uranus tilt. Jokes aside, and you best believe I had about 20 ready, we're still trying to figure out why Uranus rotates on its side, when every other planet has their axis pointing upwards, right? Uranus's tilt is 98 degrees, so there's long periods of time, like 40 years long, where the North or South Pole will just face the sun directly. It'll just grill the sun for 40 years straight. Perfect place to get your tan on. The other pole, not so much. You're gonna be pale for 40 years, like my dad. Other planets in our solar system, they have a prograde rotation. Now Venus, that has a retrograde rotation. But why? What's going on here? So far, our leading theory is that something massive may have hit these planets many, many moons ago, early in their planet life. Scientists believe that Uranus was hit by a meteor and completely threw it off course. Gotta be careful. Gotta watch Uranus, right? Hit that thumbs up for Uranus.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have radiation-proof bacteria. In 2002, Russian astrobiologists hypothesized that a bacteria here on Earth may have actually evolved on Mars. Deinococcus radioduranis is the most tough bacteria on Earth. It can withstand even the most extreme conditions such as cold, dehydration, vacuum, and acid, but the craziest part is that it is virtually radiation-proof. These little microbes microbes can withstand several thousand times the amount of radiation a human can withstand, as well as more radiation than any other bacteria on Earth. You can even find this bacteria on the inside of a nuclear reactor. Scientists did an experiment to see how quickly this bacteria could build up a stronger radiation resistance by zapping the bacteria with enough radiation to kill 99.9% of it, and then leaving the remaining 0.01% to repopulate before zapping it again and repeating the process. It was concluded that it would have taken E. coli thousands and thousands of rounds to build up the same resistance that this hardy bacteria did in only 44 rounds. With this experiment, and based on the dose of radiation they gave each bacteria, it would take millions and millions of years to get even close to that amount of radiation they gave the bacteria in one cycle. Since Earth just doesn't carry that amount of radiation, it has led some scientists to speculate that since Mars is virtually unprotected and receives extremely high amounts of radiation, these bacteria may have evolved on Mars and gained their resistance in just a few 100,000 years, and that they may have been flung off of Mars by an asteroid and then brought to Earth on meteorites. It certainly is just a hypothesis at this point, but really, how else can we explain this random super-powered bacteria that is unlike anything else on our Earth? In our number 9 spot today, we have the USS Princeton UFO. What's a space list without the mention of a UFO sighting? This one took place in 2004. On November 14th of that year, the USS Princeton noticed an unknown aircraft of some sort that was about 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. For 2 weeks prior to this, the crew had been tracking a strange flying object that would start out at around 80,000 feet before extremely quickly dropping to hover right above the Pacific Ocean. Black Aces Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate of Strike Fighter Squadron 41 went over in 2 fighter jets in order to kind of scope out the situation, and when they arrived, they saw what at first appeared to be churning water, while there was an oval shape just below the surface. After this, a white oval-shaped object appeared above the water, but it had no markings on it. Like, we're talking no windows, nothing that would indicate an engine, no wings, and the infrared monitors on the jets didn't pick up any sort of exhaust. The commander and lieutenant commander tried to intercept this strange aircraft, but it very quickly flew away and reappeared on the monitor 60 miles away. Like, when I say quickly, I mean it was moving at 3 times the speed of sound and over twice the speed of the fighter jets. Like some Top Gun Maverick stuff. So faster than any kind of technology we currently have. We still don't know exactly what this was, but I'll tell you one thing. We definitely don't have that kind of technology. In our number 8 spot today, we have the USO. UFO to USO. Daryl Miklos is an explorer who took a deep dive following maps that had been put together by his friend and former astronaut Gordon Cooper. The map Daryl was using was initially made to help identify more than 100 magnetic anomalies in the sea. During one dive at a location within the Bermuda Triangle, where everything weird happens, he thought he was going to find an ancient shipwreck, but instead he found something that continues to stump researchers and Daryl himself. He came across a very strange structure that wasn't like anything he had seen before. This structure had long obtrusions which stuck out from the sides, and the whole thing was covered in coral, so whatever it is, it has been down there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Daryl has said, quote, "There's identical formations in 3 different areas, and they don't look nature-made, they don't look man-made. Certainly nothing I've ever seen based on my experience, and I have years of experience at doing this. We've identified multiple different types of shipwreck material. This doesn't match or look anything like that." People have started speculating that this structure may just be the remains of a crashed UFO. If it isn't that, then what else could it be? In our number 7 spot today, we have the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an extremely mysterious discovery that has stumped researchers ever since it was found. This artifact was found 150 feet below the surface of the Aegean Sea in a shipwreck, and it is the oldest kind of computer ever recorded, as it was dated back to the 7th century BCE. The author David Childress likened the finding to if they had found a jet plane in King Tut's tomb. That's how bizarre this discovery really was. Due to the complexity and oddity of the finding, alien enthusiasts have believed for quite some time that it may have been technology that was passed down from some sort of superior being, so aliens. When the artifact was recreated in order to learn about the mysteries it holds, the mechanism was able to calculate the position and running time of each planet. How would they have been able to create this without the use of sophisticated astronomical tools? I'm not saying that this is like concrete proof of alien life, but I don't know. There's just gotta be something else at play here. In our number 6 spot today, we have fossilized microbes. This is a piece of evidence that came from 1996, and it is said to have come all the way from Mars. 25 years ago, scientists said that they had potentially found what appeared to be fossilized microbes in a lump of Martian rock. This rock was hypothesized to have come off of Mars after some sort of collision that the planet had, and then just casually floated around in space for some 15 million years before it ended up in Antarctica in 1984. You know, just the kind of thing that happens in space. Once the rock was found and analyzed, it was found that it contained organic molecules and small specks of mineralized magnetite, which can sometimes be found in the bacteria here on Earth. Once viewed with an electron microscope, there were signs of bacteria found. Of course, with anything like this, there will always be skeptics, and some have claimed that the magnetite wasn't that similar to those found in bacteria, and some claim that the signs of nanobacteria were just grown in a lab. I'm not a scientist, nor have I seen this Mars rock, so I obviously can't tell you who is telling the truth here, but what I can say is that neither of the people who believe this rock came from Mars, or those who claim that it's fake, can prove their point without any kind of doubt, so I'll just let you draw your own conclusions on this one. In our number 5 spot today, we have quark gluon plasma. So basically, scientists believe that right after the Big Bang, there was this sort of really hot, goopy kind of a substance that was created, and it was made up of all different kinds of matter. Everything is moving around at the speed of light, it's hot, it's fast, and it's like cosmic soup. Okay, so experts at the Large Hadron Collider, which is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator, wanted to recreate this space soup. You know, part of the whole trying to solve the mysteries of the universe's origins kind of thing. When they did this and got the machine to recreate this, they ended up recording the highest temperature ever. Apparently this soup was measured at 9.9 trillion degrees Fahrenheit. We obviously can all understand that that is insanely hot, but just how hot? Well, that is 366,000 times hotter than the center of the sun. In our number 4 spot today, we have energetic cosmic rays. Energetic cosmic rays are described as high energy protons and atomic nuclei that move through space at nearly the speed of light. There are some that originate from supernova, but there are some that originate from outside of our galaxy, and those ones have scientists wondering where they are coming from and what the source of them is. As these cosmic rays flow into our solar system, their paths are bent by the magnetic fields of both the sun and the earth. Upon impact with Earth's atmosphere, these rays produce a shower of secondary particles. Some of these particles do end up reaching Earth, but most are intercepted by either the magnetosphere or the heliosphere. The strongest cosmic rays are extremely powerful, and they can have energies of over 100 million times greater than a man-made collider. If you're wondering why you should care about this space mystery, it's because these things have the power to cause our digital systems to crash, and in our ever-increasing digital world, that could cause some major disruptions to our life. That is why we care about how many of their origins remain a complete mystery that has scientists stumped. And also, because shouldn't we just know where these things that are bombarding Earth's atmosphere are coming from? Concerning is definitely the word I'd use, but honestly, what part of space isn't concerning? In our number 3 spot today, we have Elst Pizarro. This is a weird little object that has been stumping scientists since it was first discovered in 1979. So basically, asteroids and comets tend to be fairly easy to tell apart. I mean, an asteroid is a solid lump of rock and metal, and you tend to find them more in the inner solar system, especially in the asteroid belt. And on the other hand, we have comets, which are usually more icy objects that travel from the outer areas of the solar system, and sometimes when they react with the solar radiation, they have those famous tails. So when Elst Pizarro was first discovered, it was orbiting in the asteroid belt, so it was classified as an asteroid. Flash forward to 1996 and closer examination shows that it had a tail. like a comet. At first, experts thought that perhaps the tail was a result of some sort of collision, which is not uncommon for asteroids, but when the brightness and structure of the tail changed over time, it became clear that it was more of an ongoing process. Basically, this object showed signs and trademarks of both asteroids and comets, and it truly was a baffling discovery. Basically, the discovery of this object led to an entirely new classification: active asteroids. In our number 2 spot today, we have the fastest black hole. The biggest black hole that we have found so far is said to weigh about 40 billion times the mass of our sun, or about 20 times the size of our solar system. That's so scary. That's so big! Some of the outer, slowest orbiting planets in our solar system, like let's take Neptune as an example, orbits at a speed of about 165 Earth years. This huge black hole, the one that's 20 times the size of our solar system, yet it orbits once every 3 months. Do you know how fast that is? Neptune is considered slow at going 12,148 miles per hour. The outer edge of this black hole is moving at half the speed of light. The crazy thing about black holes this large though, other than how fast they're moving apparently, is that it is believed that they wouldn't necessarily kill you right away if you were to fall into one. In fact, it's thought that you would actually survive. You just wouldn't be able to escape to tell the tale because of that whole nothing escapes the black hole thing that they all have going on. In our number 1 spot today, we have supermassive black holes. Speaking of black holes, why is there a supermassive black hole at the center of most galaxies? We know that this is often the case, but we just can't quite figure out why. Every galaxy's supermassive black hole ranges in size, and we know that a stellar black hole forms from a supernova when the core of the star implodes, but we don't know how a supermassive black hole is formed. Because of the fact that the center of galaxies is where a lot of matter is boxed in, it could happen that supermassive black holes form from a cluster of regular stellar black holes, which all ended up merging together because they were in a tight confined space at the center of the galaxy. There are other theories as well, such as the possibility of these supermassive black holes being formed during the Big Bang. What I'm trying to get at is, we don't know how these things are formed, or why they are in the center of most galaxies, or even if there were supermassive black holes before the galaxies even existed. Maybe one day we'll find out, but this might just be one of those mysteries that is destined to stay a secret.
Coming up at our number 10 spot, we have the Myrtles Plantation Mirror. Myrtles Plantation is a place in St. Francisville, Louisiana, that is known for being extremely haunted. There are so many ghost sightings and photographs, and in particular, there is a mirror where people tend to see ghosts in. People believe that the mirror holds the spirits of a mother and her young ones that passed away in the home. Apparently, a handprint continues to appear in one of the corners of the mirror, even though it continues to be wiped away by staff. Whoa! The mirror is definitely haunted and cursed. In our number 9 spot, we have the Koh-i-Noor Diamond. The Koh-i-Noor Diamond has been said to be cursed for centuries, but more specifically for males. It is said that only God or women can wear it with impunity. All else who wears it will be cursed. It is said to bring about great wealth to all women and great misfortune to all men. It dates back thousands of years, but it is currently in the hands of the British royal family, and it has been worn by Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. I wonder how people started thinking that the crown was cursed. I bet you some woman, thousands of years ago, was mad at her husband and convinced him that the crown was cursed so she could have it all to herself. Like they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. In our number 8 spot, we have The Crying Boy. This is a painting of a boy that is crying that is said to be haunted. I had never heard of it before today, but apparently this painting is widely known around the world and on the internet as possibly being cursed. The painting is literally of a boy that's really crying, like a waterfall of tears is falling down his face. I could see why people would feel something when looking at it, as the energy is quite strong and, of course, sad. Anyways, regardless, this painting was made by a Spanish artist named Giovanni Bragolin, and the painting was actually mass-produced after the war in England, and also so many homes caught on fire after purchasing this painting, and the painting seemingly survived each time. People believed it to be cursed because, well, the painting never burned down with the houses. But many years later, the paintings were analyzed and it was proven that they had been coated with a fire repellent. It still doesn't explain all of the fires in the first place. Like, why were there so many fires after people purchased this painting? So that's why people are still very weary on this painting and believe it to be cursed. In our number 7 spot, we have the Delphi Purple Sapphire. This stone is also known as the cursed amethyst because it's probably cursed and you should probably not touch it. This stone was apparently stolen from the Temple of Indra in 1857 and then brought to England by Colonel W. Ferris. It is said that after this, he lost all of his fortune and received an enormous amount of bad luck. Any person after him that came into contact with the stone came upon some bad luck. Allegedly, a singer lost her voice after having the stone. Whoa. It now rests in the London Natural History Museum, and even the person that brought it there said they experienced a horrible storm while en route. Coincidence? I think not. In our number 6 spot, we have the Hope Diamond. So many cursed jewels in the world, it almost makes you believe in the possibility that it can hold energy. But wait! Everything is energy, so of course it can. We could probably go down a rabbit hole here, but whatever, I'm gonna stop myself. Anyways, the Hope Diamond is a large blue gemstone that is worth approximately $250 million. This is one of the most known cursed jewels around the world, as it has reportedly caused great misfortune and misery to whomever wears it. The reportings of misfortune date all the way back to 1653 in India, when a French merchant took the gem from one of the eyes of a Hindu idol, and eventually this merchant was eaten to death by dogs. Misfortune may be an understatement in this case. It's a good thing most of us will never get anywhere close to this object in our lifetime. In our number 5 spot, we have the Blarney Stone. This is a stone located in Cork, Ireland, and it is believed to be quite powerful. Kissing the stone is said to bring a person luck. But if there is any removal of the stone, even by taking a few pieces of the stone, the person who has removed it will be cursed with bad luck. Misfortunes such as loss of jobs, financial lows, and depression have been reported and associated with those that have taken parts of the stone. Apparently, these parts that have been taken have been mailed back after they have felt the wrath of this curse. That's pretty funny when you think about it. You would think mailing it wouldn't do any good unless there's someone there to put the stone back. I doubt there's some kind of employee that's, unwrapping people's mail and putting the pieces of the stone back, and if there is such a person, even if they're a volunteer, bless them. In our number 4 spot, we have Elmo. Yes, Elmo, the character from one of the most iconic shows called Sesame Street, is known to be a cursed doll. Honestly, I heard about this one and instantly it checked out for me because my brother had an Elmo doll and it would just start talking randomly and we totally thought it was haunted. So it's comforting to know that other people had strange occurrences with it. Apparently there is a story about a boy that loved Elmo and was gifted it, and a few days after receiving it, the Elmo started saying, "Kill James," continuously. Whew, that's horrifying. Definitely stay away from the Elmo doll, just saying. In our number 3 spot, we have a piece of Uluru rock. Yet another cursed rock to stay away from. This is a large sandstone rock formation in the North Territory, Australia, and apparently this place is sacred for the indigenous people of the area. They advise that no one should take anything from the site, no small rocks or pieces or anything. But of course, do people always listen when told to not do something? No. The people that have taken pieces of the formation, though, have reported experiencing severe illness afterwards, bad luck, deaths, and terrible breakups. It feels like we've been too conditioned by movies to believe in any real magic that we forget about where writers of movies get their inspiration from. In our number 2 spot, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. There is a summer cottage in Rhode Island, and apparently in the ballroom there are a number of cursed chairs. The idea of cursed chairs just seems so silly to me. Out of all the objects in the world, why a bunch of chairs? Well, as silly as it sounds, there have been too many sightings and experiences to count that proves this theory. People have reported feeling chills up and down their spine, and people have reported feeling a strange sensation of energy around them. Also, it has been reported by many a feeling of being pushed down from the chairs by an unseen force. I kinda wanna go there and experience that. Anyone else? But I suppose if we will be forever cursed, then maybe we shouldn't. In our number 1 spot, we have the haunted wedding dress. I'm sure there are many, many haunted wedding dresses around the world. Heck, I would say any marriage that ends in divorce, the wedding dress is probably not high vibes. But this one in particular, from a girl named Anna Baker, is known to be quite haunted. Anna Baker was from a rich family, and in 1849, she fell in love with an iron worker, aka someone of lower breeding, as they used to say. A lower class chap. Anyways, she was forbidden to marry him, and Anna had already bought her wedding dress. Oh no! Allegedly, she was heartbroken, and she decided that she would never marry anyone ever again, and she ended up passing away single as a maid in 1914. Her house eventually became a museum, and they say that her old wedding dress is haunted, and many people have reportedly seen the wedding dress moving in its glass box. Yeah, it's definitely cursed.
In at number 10, we have the eBay mirror. So I remember reading this story a few years ago and being absolutely fascinated. 2 guys living in a shared house in Muswell Hill, London, started experiencing weird goings on when their landlord hung a mirror in the house. This mirror was reportedly found in a skip, or dumpster, right outside the property. 20-year-old student Joseph Birch and 34-year-old painter Sotiris Charalambous say that they were immediately met with bad feelings, followed by bad luck, misery, and even sickness. Charalambous even said he woke up in the night screaming with stabbing pains. He attributed all of this horror to the mirror. Things became enough for the pair when Birch said he saw flickering shadows and glimpses of black darkness coming from the mirror. He then woke up with scratch marks all over himself. The pair put the mirror on eBay for £100 and sold it for just over the asking price. I, for one, would not want to own that mirror though.
Okay, moving on to number 9, we have bunk beds. In 1987, a haunted bunk bed in Wisconsin became a topic of national coverage when a family dramatically fled their home in winter after reports of hauntings. Later, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries documented the paranormal activities. It all started when Alan and Debbie Tallman bought bunk beds from a second-hand shop and immediately noticed strange goings-on in their home in a small town of Horicum. Soon the family noticed the radio would switch on its own, and the children who slept in the bed saw an ugly old woman in their room. As things started opening and closing on their own accord in the same room as the bed, the family got their local pastor in, who felt that there was a devil in the bed. After things went bad to worse, the family destroyed the bunk beds and left the house. I think they did the right thing. And now moving on to number 8, we have more craziness. We got the teddy bear. Teddy bears are supposed to be used for, cuddling and comfort, not for smothering people. One teddy bear in India caused a stir on the internet in July of 2016, so it happened earlier on this year in the summertime, as footage was released on YouTube of a reportedly possessed bear. Uploader Paris Diwa captured the video in which the huge stuffed bear seems to move on its own. I mean, is this real life right now? Many YouTube viewers are questioning the authenticity of the footage, but who knows?
Warning, this next haunted object has actually caused people who see the picture of it to experience shocking symptoms. Are you ready, Landon?
Are we gonna show them the picture?
Yeah,
Ooh.
And there's some shocking stuff going on, so close your eyes to this next one if you're scared of that kind of thing.
I'm scared.
In at number 7, we have Peggy. In 2015, footage of a creepy doll caused absolute chaos around the world, inciting paranormal enthusiasts, with many feeling chest pains and experiencing headaches and visions after viewing the pictures or videos of her. British paranormal investigator Jane Harris, based in Shropshire, says that she was inundated with messages after images and footage of Peggy were posted on the internet. Harris Morris runs an organization called Haunted Dolls and was given the doll by a petrified woman. She is thought to have the power to visit people in their dreams, even haunting one woman to warn her about her cat that died the next day. Spooky. One woman even said that she had a heart attack just hours after viewing a picture of Peggy. Mediums who have worked with Peggy believe that she is linked to the Holocaust. Terrifying.
Following that, now at number 6, Bassano vase. The story goes that a 15th century carved silver vase was given to an Italian bride on her wedding night in Napoli. That very evening she was murdered and vowed to seek vengeance. After her death, it became clear that the family members that her spirit had somehow possessed the vase and caused death and misery to all those who touched it. After a period of time, the vase was buried and reportedly unearthed in 1988. The vase contained a warning note about the bad luck associated with its possession. The owner auctioned it for 4 million lira, so that's around $2,500 at the time. The new owner died and triggered a similar pattern in the new era of deaths. The vase has now been buried, and you should not go looking for it.
Okay, this really creeps me out. In at number 5, we have the Anguished Man painting. To be honest, looking at this painting, I have absolutely no idea who would want to own it. It is even more terrifying than a Phoebe Buffay creation. Sean Robinson acquired the Anguished Man painting from his grandmother, who believed that the artist used part of his own blood to paint the picture. The painting is said to be haunted by the spirit of the artist, and Sean has even set up a YouTube channel to document some of the crazy goings on surrounding the picture. This includes doors slamming and the air in the room changing to make it all cold. It is now said to be locked in the basement of Mr. Robinson's house, where I think it should stay forever, and then he should move, and no one should ever go there.
Robert the Doll, another doll, and this one is horrifying.
Sorry, did you say another doll?
Another doll.
I'm out of here.
There's too many dolls on this list. And as Rebecca walks off, we continue. Everybody meet Robert. Robert is a 20th century sailor doll that used to belong to Eugene Otto. Eugene used to blame many naughty things he did on Robert, and the pair would often be overheard talking. Eugene's parents assuming Robert's voice was really Eugene. When Eugene died in 1974, Robert was left in the attic and was discovered by the next owners in the home. And they had a 10-year-old daughter. The small girl was terrified of Robert and claimed he wanted to kill her. Neighbors of the house would swear they saw Robert at the window on occasion, and the plumber would work at the house found the doll to move across the room on its own. A reporter from the area, Malcolm Ross, visited the house to see Robert and was disturbed to sense that Robert was listening to his conversation and was understanding him. A final doll, and perhaps the scariest of them all, we have the basis for the movie The Conjuring and Annabelle. At number 3, we have Annabelle the doll. Annabelle currently lives in a glass box at the Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, run by Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens received the doll after it lived with a student nurse and her roommate in the 1970s. The doll behaved strangely, so the pair contacted a medium who suggested she was haunted by a dead girl named Annabelle Higgins. The pair tried to nurture and care for the girl, but she turned out to be malicious and evil, leading the pair to give the doll away. That was a good choice.
Have we finished talking about dolls?
I have a feeling we're not finished.
We have. I think we have.
Okay.
Promise me, because if not, I'm not coming back.
Okay, moving on from dolls, we got
Yeah, moving on from dolls, we have Busby's stoop chair. Mystery. Now located on the ceiling at the Thirsk Museum in North Yorkshire, the infamous Busby stoop chair has been linked to many deaths over the years. The story goes that a Yorkshireman named Thomas Busby, who was a fraudster and a drunkard, loved his wooden chair. In 1702, he fell in love with a young woman named Elizabeth Oughty. Her father, Daniel, did not approve and came to drag Elizabeth away from their home in a local inn. As Busby arrived back in the inn, he was most offended to find Daniel Oughty sitting in his favourite chair, so he murdered him. Normal reaction. As he was later tried and hung for the murder, he swore a curse that all that sit in his best chair will die. This chair ever since has been rumoured to be haunted by Busby himself. The chair stayed in the inn for years, reportedly taking the lives of 63 people who sat in it. One chimney sweep who sat in the chair while drinking at the pub was found hanged nearby the next morning, and it's said that all those who sat in the chair ever since who went to war did not come back. As late as the 1970s, 2 people died after sitting in the chair. Luckily, it was then taken away and put in a museum and strung up on the ceiling so no one can sit in it ever again. Okay, we are here at number 1. The possessed items on this list seem to have a varying degree of legitimacy. However, this last one really does have an irrefutably concerning history. I can't get over this. At number 1, we have Franz Ferdinand's car. Many history buffs will know that World War I was triggered by the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife in Bosnia. The pair were in their luxury Graf and Stift limousine, which stalled at the very wrong moment outside a cafe from which a man who'd previously tried to assassinate him was just exiting. What a crazy coincidence. Their deaths, probably caused by the stalled car in part, were not the last tragedy to befall the limo. The car's second owner, General Potiorek, went insane after driving the car and was soon committed to an asylum. Many say the car is possessed by an evil spirit. In fact, throughout the war and the period shortly after, the limo was involved in 6 accidents and 13 deaths. Why are people still driving this thing? If we're also to attribute the car as the direct cause of the death of Franz Ferdinand, and thus the sparker of the First World War, it could also be directly linked to the death of 17 million people, which in turn set the stage for the death of 60 million people in World War II. So that car has some blood on its hands. Suffice to say, after a final death spree in which 5 people travelling to a wedding were killed, the car was finally donated to the War History Museum of Vienna in 1926 and has caused no deaths since. Thank God.
Starting things off in at number 10 with the Thomas Busby's chair. Otherwise known as the death chair or dead man's chair. I mean, this doesn't seem like a piece of furniture that I would want in my house, but maybe that's just me. This chair is supposedly cursed, and anyone who dares to sit on this chair will die shortly after. Let me give you guys a brief background on this killer chair. A man named Thomas Busby murdered his father-in-law back in 1702. For his awful crimes, he was executed by hanging, but it is believed that a chair was present at the execution carried a curse, and whoever sat on it will die from an unspeakable accident. The chair remained in a hotel for many years until the owner gifted it to a museum. The museum owner wanted to display the chair, but obviously he didn't want anyone to sit on it, so now this cursed chair is hung high up on the wall where no one can touch it. The cursed mirror of Myrtle's Plantation breaks onto this list at number 9. The Myrtle's Plantation is believed to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world, but one of the most haunted items on the premises has to be this cursed mirror. The mirror was brought into the home back in 1980, and according to the legend, the mirror contains the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and her children who were poisoned to death by a slave on the plantation. It is said that whenever a family member dies, you're supposed to cover up all the mirrors so that the spirits don't get trapped or lost. Well, I guess this family missed that memo. Guests at the plantation have complained about seeing figures lurking in the mirror and a child-sized handprints on the glass. Take a look at these pictures and see if you can spot the ghost or handprint in the mirror. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna be getting rid of all my mirrors tonight. Next up on this list, and at number 8, we have the Crying Boy painting. Can we just take a look at this thing for a moment? Okay, who the heck would actually want this painting in their house? It's just so sad and depressing. Well, what makes things even worse is that this painting is believed to be cursed. This painting was made by an artist in the 1950s, and for some odd reason, it became famous. It was mass produced and replicated so that it could be sold around the country. However, people who hung this painting inside of their room reported that their house caught on fire for no apparent reason. But that's not even the most disturbing part of the story. Apparently the painting of the crying boy would be completely untouched by the fire. Some people say that this is a pure coincidence, but the undamaged painting hasn't been explained. We have another cursed painting here at number 7. The Hands Resist Him painting is another piece of artwork that I definitely wouldn't want in my house. I mean, just take a look at this thing. Is this real life right now? What is with the crying children? I don't find this comforting or visually pleasing to look at. Well, this cursed painting has been terrifying people for decades, and I'll tell you why. The painting was put up on auction on eBay back in February of 2000. According to the seller, the painting carried some kind of curse. They said that the characters in the painting would move at night, and that they would sometimes leave the painting and enter the room where it was being displayed. But people also believe by that just looking at the painting you feel extremely ill or have a really unpleasant experience. The Bassano vase comes crashing in onto this list at number 6. No one knows where this curse originated from or how this vase came to be so powerful, but it is believed that this vase contains a terrible curse, and anyone who comes into possession of it will be doomed and die shortly after. Even with this curse, the vase was auctioned off for about $2,250, and the person that bought it died within just 3 months. 3 more deaths of the new owners followed until finally a desperate family demanded that the police take it and seal it up forever. Robert the Doll, you guys know this one. Well, he's next up on this list at number 5. This guy is just creepy. I feel like Robert the Doll doesn't need a long introduction, so in short, he's terrifying. He's a cursed doll that is capable of misfortune and even murder. Currently, he sits in a clear box at the Fort East Martello Museum in Florida, but before that, he belonged to a family until he was given away. He can apparently move across the room on his own, follow you with his creepy beady eyes, and he can also wreak havoc in your life if you disrespect him. I mean, wow, Robert the Doll sounds like so much fun, right? Well, apparently there are a ton of stories about this doll trying to kill people. The fun and games are over. Sounds like we have a real life Chucky doll on our hands. Driving into number 4, we have James Dean's cursed car. This was a 1955 Porsche Spyder that was cared for and loved by James Dean. You would think that this car was properly taken care of and it wouldn't be cursed, right? Well, that's not the case here. Apparently, if anyone gets into this car, they would be found dead within a week, and that's exactly what happened to James Dean. He was found dead inside of it, but things get even more creepy. As the car was being worked on, the car fell on one of the mechanic's legs and crushed both of them, but the curse kept going on. When the car got a new owner, he lost control and crashed it into a tree, dying right on impact. Oh, and 2 people who tried to steal the car were severely injured. I think it's best if we leave this car permanently in a park and maybe torch it. The woman from Lem statue brings us to number 3. This limestone statue is also known as the Goddess of Death because anyone who comes into contact with this mysterious statue will die from unknown causes. I mean, wow, let's break this statue and bury it deep in the ground where it belongs, and we shouldn't mark it. And did I mention that every family who possessed this statue died? I mean, yeah. And one of the families were so scared by the strange deaths, so they decided to donate the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, where it actually remains there today. So shortly after the statue was placed in the museum, the people who came into close contact with it died. No one has handled this statue since because of its scary supernatural powers. This item is actually placed behind a strong glass and locked where no human hands can touch it. The Diebuck box climbs into this list at number 2. These boxes are usually a wine box that is said to be haunted by a restless demonic spirit that is capable of haunting and even possessing you. The first Diebuck box appeared in 2003 when it was purchased on eBay. Once the new owner opened up the box, a bunch of strange things started to happen. He had unexplained hauntings, recurring nightmares, unexplained bruises, and he can constantly smell ammonia. Other people who have come into contact with the box reported having the same awful nightmares, experienced negative health problems, and unexplained deaths happening around them. So if you happen to open up one of these boxes, you're supposed to burn it and burn it right away. The box will burn for a long time, but once it is burned, the Diebuck is fully released and it can't return back to the box. Or better yet, how about we just don't open it in the first place? We lock it away forever. And topping this list, and at number 1, I mean, how do we make a list like this and not include the Annabelle doll?
Don't ever touch anything, and if you do, let me know. This is the worst thing in here, is that doll. I'm not gonna stare at it though, so you can take the picture, but I'm not going to stare at it.
Annabelle is actually a Raggedy Ann doll, which is now locked up in Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum in Connecticut, and I'm pretty sure they just passed away. It's pretty sad. I think it was Lorraine that passed away, so rest in peace. And that's because Annabelle was said to have caused some pretty disturbing and demonic events. Annabelle would shift positions during the day or move to a different room entirely. She also left penciled messages that said "help us." The owner also came home to find drops of blood on the doll's chest and on the back of her hand. It is believed that Annabelle was involved in a chain of events that ended in a man's death. So needless to say, Annabelle is considered to be demonically possessed, and that is why she's locked up in a glass cabinet.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Dybbuk box. A normal object turned supernatural, turned cursed. What a journey. The Dybbuk box is said to be a haunted wine cabinet filled with a restless spirit. Interestingly, the wine cabinet had a Jewish prayer carved into the back of it, which is maybe what attracted the ghoul. The spirit in question is allegedly a Holocaust survivor, Haveka, who escaped to Spain. The box was famously sold on eBay in 2003 and has spent the past 16 years bouncing between owners who don't want it, and I can understand why. It seems each owner has fallen on horrifying misfortune and suffered reoccurring nightmares. One owner suffered a stroke shortly after receiving the box as a gift. Apparently the box has now been hidden by Jewish rabbis, thank goodness. The box actually has a connected film with it, The Possession, which came out in 2012. I think it was based on the wine box events. Coming in at number 9, we have the Occult Museum voodoo dolls. Voodoo dolls in general are supernatural items. They're little effigies created in magical kind of practices, and for the person on the receiving end, they're bad juju. Pins are placed in the doll in order to harm the subject, which isn't great, not great at all. So with that in mind, a supernatural object used to invoke a curse, do you want to see the voodoo dolls from the Ed and Lorraine Warren Museum? Guys, you don't know how hard it is to say Ed and Lorraine Warren in one go. It's a tongue twister. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Either way, voodoo dolls. So there is actually a noose on the neck of one of the dolls, which kind of indicates that somebody might have died. The other one has its eyes gouged out, which isn't great either. Visually scary, but also actually scary. It seems that the doll collector came across these dolls and brought them home, only to find that her son's health began deteriorating. It seems that some of the witch's voodoo doll magic had been retained, and it was picked up the boy as a new vessel. The collector contacted the Warrens, who removed the doll, after which the boy made a full recovery, thank goodness. However, it seems that the story continues. There was a visitor to the museum and they broke the rules by touching one of the dolls, and later they were involved in a horrifying accident. Who's to blame here? Coming in at number 8, we have the Bassano vase. At first, the Bassano vase is a sight to behold. It's a beautifully carved silver vase from the 15th century. It's antique. But as it's on this list, you may have realised that actually it's a supernatural antique with a curse. Hurrah! The story goes that the vase was made for an Italian wedding as a gift to the bride, who is to be wed in a traditional ceremony in Napoli. On her wedding night, she was excited, but unfortunately an intruder broke in and stabbed her. She was found bleeding to death, clutching the vase. The legend has it that she promised to return and seek vengeance on the person who stopped her marrying her love. After her death, the vase was passed down through the family, but anyone who came in contact with it mysteriously fell ill, or they were met with serious misfortune. Following that, the vase was wrapped up and packed away, but unfortunately it was unearthed again hundreds of years later in the late 80s, when it also started making headlines for continuing its spate of deadly bad luck. Newspaper reports indicate that the vase was buried again in an undisclosed location, hoping that it would stay out of the way with human contact forever this time. Coming in at number 7, we have the Evil Eye. The curse of the evil eye. Although actually, this is an interesting twist at this point, because these objects actually protect against curses. The evil eye is a curse cast by a malevolent and malicious glare given to a person when they aren't looking. If an evil eye is cast upon you, you are susceptible to injury or misfortune. It could even mean that you're set upon by animals. To protect yourself from the evil eye, usually people carry a talisman with an eye on it, which in themselves look pretty terrifying, but actually they're there to stare down a curse. The evil eye has been incorporated into a lot of protective objects, most popularly jewellery. Also, there are a lot of evil eye wall hangings and wind chimes. I feel like I'd quite like an evil eye bracelet so it can stare down a few evil eyes that have been looking my way recently, like bah! Reflected curse. Coming in at number 6, we have cursed tarot cards. Tarot cards are used in divination, for forecasting rather than predicting. Usually a person formulates a question and seeks an answer from the cards, a deck of 78 individual cards with different meanings. The most famous cards are Death, the Tower and the Devil, all thought to be bad omens, but of course that depends on your interpretation. Some people are convinced that their tarot decks can become cursed and that everything that's forecast will actually happen badly. There is also a superstition that burning tarot cards will bring a curse upon you. It seems that the only way to be rid of a cursed deck of tarots is to drown them, soak them all face down in water. honestly, I'm not so sure about that. I think they work by energy, so if you have bad energy, maybe you'll get bad cards. Coming in at number 5, we have Maori masks. Maori is the name of the indigenous people of New Zealand and Polynesia. Masks are made to honour their ancestors, and they're often beautifully carved and slightly intimidating to look at. The masks are thought to contain the souls of warriors who died in battle, so pretty supernatural and ghostly if you ask me. While men are fine to be going around touching a Maori mask, females have a much more uncertain time. Legend has it you should never seek out a Maori mask if you're pregnant or menstruating because you could invoke an ancient curse. In October 2010, a museum in New Zealand made headlines when it told a pregnant woman to stay away from the sacred artifacts. Speaking of sacred, at number 4 we have Uluru. Is a rock formation an object? Either way, I'm putting it on this list. Uluru, or Ayers Rock, is both sacred and cursed, if the stories are to be believed. The large sandstone monolith in the Northern Territory of Central Australia is sacred to Aboriginal tribes, the first people of the land. They believe that it is inhabited by the ancestral spirits of the land. The rock started forming 550 million years ago, and it's believed that if a visitor takes a rock from the spot, they will suffer serious misfortune, sometimes even grave misfortune. There have been reports of people returning stones that they've taken from Ayers Rock to try and end their suffering. Shouldn't be taking the rocks in the first place. Coming in at number 3, we have the Terracotta Army. I kind of believe that the Terracotta Army have an air of the supernatural about them. They were, after all, a work of funeral art that were buried with the purpose of protecting an emperor in the afterlife. The thousands of terracotta figures were buried with the first emperor of China in 210 BCE, but they were rediscovered by local farmers thousands of years later in 1974 in Yang Village's rural land. For them though, the discovery was actually a curse. The government didn't pay them well for their findings, and then they took their land and their homes off them in order to build a tourist centre. The government made a lot of money, they didn't. One of the farmers who discovered the soldiers actually killed himself, and the others were met with bad luck, many of whom have died penniless. Coming into number 2, whatever you do, do not touch the Demon Book. The Book of Soiga is an early 16th century treatise on demonology written in Latin. There are only 2 copies of the book in the world known to us, and one was possessed by the Elizabethan scholar John Dee. Dee spent his life trying to interpret the text, which was filled with spells and rituals. He had a good understanding of what was happening, apart from the final 36 pages, which he just couldn't decipher. He and his trusted friend Edward Kelly summoned the spirit of Uriel to tell them the meaning of the last pages. The legend says that Uriel then possessed Kelly and spoke through him. He claimed that the book came into existence when Adam entered paradise, and that it could only be properly interpreted by the Archangel Michael himself. He also said that whoever deciphers the meaning of the last 36 pages will be destined to die 2.5 years later. Why 2.5? We don't know, but I wouldn't want to be reading that book. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the Delhi Purple Sapphire. Also known as the Gem of Sorrow, the Delhi Purple Sapphire was housed in a sacred temple in India, the Temple of Indra in Kanpur. Indra, by the way, is the Hindu god of war and thunderstorms. Amid the British-led turmoil in India, it wasn't uncommon for soldiers to loot sacred temples, stealing their jewels and smuggling them back to Britain. This is exactly what happened with the purple sapphire in question. Colonel W. Ferris took it back to England only to be met with terrible luck. Financial misfortunes befell him, his family got very sick, things started to fall apart. He gave the stone away, and the person who received it committed suicide. The next owner of the sapphire was Edward Heron Allen, who was also met with really bad luck. He bound the stone with silver and attached 2 scarab beetles, and it seemed like the bad luck was contained. However, his dreams were frequently haunted by Hindu yogis until he gave the stone away. The stone then was returned to him, so he threw it in Regent's Canal in London. No prizes for guessing that actually it came back. The story continues over another 100 or so years. More recently, it found its way to a museum, and one night the museum curator was travelling with the stone only to be injured by a terrible storm with his wife.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the discovery of penicillin. Sometimes miracles happen when nobody is looking. That's the key. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin back in 1928. At the time, he was actually studying Staphylococcus, which is a bacteria that causes infections and boils and all that nasty stuff. But right before Alexander left for a 2-week vacation, he left a petri dish with some of that Staphylococcus behind. He left it on the lab table rather than stored away in an incubator. Now, during his well-needed time off, a penicillium mold spore just drifted in there magically, either through the window, up the lab stairwell, some Horton Hears a Who type commute, and the temperature of the room and lack of one Alexander Fleming allowed for the mold to fight back, furthermore preventing that bacteria from growing. He literally changed the world. He discovered this antibacterial substance, and it was only produced by the strains of penicillium. Thank you, or else we'd be a little uncomfortable. Number 9, mass extinction. Are we part of the 6th extinction? Is it happening right now all around us? Most likely. We lose thousands of species each year, and when looking in the past, asteroids and ice ages, sure, they have all something to do with massive extinction level events, of course, but after humans invented the wheel and then discovered fire, things started to change. We kind of caused a lot of bad stuff. In the 1800s, industrialization drove up extinction rates and continues to do so. According to Elizabeth Colbert, across the world, scientists every day are monitoring what could be the largest extinction event since the dinosaurs. That's us, since the dinosaurs. It's like dinosaurs, T-Rex, and then us, equally as bad. What do you know? Arms are a bit longer now, but still, we're up to no good. The way human beings interact with the environment and affect biodiversity could be more deadly than an asteroid hitting the Earth. That's pretty eye-opening. With an ever-climbing list of endangered species, Colbert and the world asked one question. Is it too late to change it? Like, are we screwed? Most likely, but we can do our best at this point. Okay, let's move on to something a bit lighter so we don't feel like complete trash. Sounds good, let's do it. Number 8, monkey business. Okay, this study done back in 2016, I had to include it because in a list of unsettling things, this definitely fits. This is the most unsettling thing I've ever heard in my life. And yeah, that includes finding out you're part of a mass extinction level event. This one's right beside it. You ever see Planet of the Apes? The voice acting, the motion capture, Andy Serkis, he kills it. All those dots on his face, really good. The voice, nails it. It's like Caesar, it's very deep. I can't even do it. If I did, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be doing Planet of the Apes movies. Well, it turns out in real life, they would sound even scarier than that. Research done back in 2016 showed that macaques have a vocal tract capable of speaking. The lucky thing is they just don't have the brain power to do so, or else they would sound like this. Didn't hear it? Let's hear it again. Will you marry me? That's the scariest thing. Imagine a macaque saying that to you. I would politely say, no thank you. I'd be like, no, I'm good, man, thanks. Also, your voice is so deep. Is that laryngitis? What's that? Some vitamins. I was doing fine before I heard this, so I had to bring you down with me. You're welcome. Hit that thumbs up, and also, will you marry me? Number 7, human sacrifice. Archaeology is fascinating, but the digger we deep into the earth, the more we find out about our past. Most of the time, that's not so fun. Our past is pretty shady. Usually these findings are horrible. Not too long ago, we found the remains of a 3,000-year-old skeleton in Greece. They found the skeleton on the side of Mount Lycaon, which historians know as the site of animal sacrifice for Zeus. Ancient writers mention this site and how human sacrifice was also at play, and thanks to technology, we can now confirm that this is indeed the case, sadly. The upper part of the skull was missing, and the body was laid on 2 lines of stones, so it wasn't accidental. There were even stones laid on their pelvis, so something was going on. We look at Greece, of course, as the birthplace of philosophy, democracy, and 100-meter hurdles, and, you know, the 100-meter dash, all the Olympic stuff, that's great. But they also did some sacrificial, shady shit in their off time when they weren't slamming some Merlot. Science has allowed us to take a look all over the world as well, not just Greece. Ancient Egyptians, Aztecs, sometimes after Mayan ball games, sometimes the losing team would just be sacrificed. Yeah, good game, good game, good game, good game. Are we getting sacrificed? No, okay, good. Good game, good game, good game. Everyone talks about how awful humans are now. No, we were pretty bad always, even before we knew how to speak words or what the sun was or what the moon was. We're like, you know what? I don't know what any of this is, but all I do know is that we gotta kill each other. Number 6, whale cancer. The big C, oddly enough, doesn't affect big fish. What do you know? Well, we do know that the risk of cancer increases as you age, but the amount of cells that you have surely has something to do with it, right? So large animals like whales, obviously they have a few more cells laying around. They're a bit husky, they're a bit bigger. You would think that the odds of whales getting cancer would increase, but the reality of it is that whales and dolphins are way less susceptible to cancer than us humans. We still have no idea why. Maybe it's because whales sing a lot? I don't know, maybe if we sing to each other instead of talking and killing, we can maybe beat cancer. I don't know, worth a shot. Let's just start singing like whales. That's how we'll communicate from now on. We'll just go, and then someone else will be like, good, thank you. Number 5, MK Ultra. This one always gives me the chills. Many of you have probably heard of this at some point, but if not, well, buckle up. MKUltra was a secret CIA project that lasted from 1953 to 1973, where they ran hundreds of experiments to US citizens without them knowing, and they gave them LSD, narcotics, anything in attempts to crack mind control, or as they called it, information gathering. It's like when Apple's like, yeah, we're just gonna gather some info real quick when we talk to Facebook, we're just gonna gather some information. They're spying, definitely. It's bad shit. In the 50s and 60s, around the Cold War, the United States believed that the Soviets, Chinese, and or the North Korean agents were using mind control. I mean, sure, how else could you explain brainwashed prisoners of war in Korea, right? That's gotta be the only explanation as to why they're acting that way. Nothing else to do with it. The program had subjects take LSD, hallucinogens, they had electric shock therapy at one point. Horrible stuff and all, and it was being done in universities, hospitals, and prisons. The happenings of this project weren't fully known to the public until years after it ended, but the agency destroyed most MK documents back in 1973 when it ended. So we think we know, in reality, we probably know nothing, Jon Snow. Number 4, skin problems. This is a specific case that I had to share. A Russian lady found a small lump below her eye, her left eye to be specific, and at first she didn't think much of it, but eventually this lump was gone, which is a good sign, but then a new lump had appeared later on. This time it was on her lip. Odd. So when she went to go see a doctor about this lip problem, which is new and the eye problem's now gone, they removed a Dirofilaria repens, which is a thin worm. Crawls around in the face. Hence why the bump was disappearing and then reappearing later on. It was moving around. I just got goosebumps talking about that. Now normally this type of worm only affects animals, dogs, cats, foxes, anything like that. They spread through mosquito bites as well. So next time you're in the woods smacking your arms, I dare you to not think of this. Good game. Number 3, particle accelerator. This list is full of unsettling things. I think they're pretty batshit insane, but this next one actually concerns me about our future. I don't mess with science. The at-home volcano trick where you like put in the vinegar and it goes poof, I don't do that. That's even scary for me. What if one experiment could hypothetically swallow our known universe? Would we do it? Sure, sounds fun. Why not? What have we got to lose at this point? Sir Martin Rees, Britain's royal astronomer, shines some light on a dark possibility in his book titled On the Future. The particle accelerator is this massive machine that does exactly that. It smashes these charged particles together at a high speed, all in the name of science. We're trying to further understand condensed matter physics, and while it sure sounds impressive, what if it goes south? What would happen? Well, it could destroy the world, apparently. These particles smashing together could create this strange matter that shrinks Earth down to 300 feet in diameter. Or it creates a black hole, one of the two. A black hole would just suck away all of our existence, or we'd be little tiny people. Thanks, Martin. Now I won't be able to sleep because I'm thinking of particle colliders and Freddy Krueger. Both are equally as haunting. Number 2, no more insects. This one I wish I didn't know. Ignorance is bliss, folks. But we're kind of doomed. No easy way to say it. And so is the bug spray industry, apparently. The world is losing insects, which if you're a little kid or if you're me, sounds like a good thing at first. I don't like bugs. Any bugs. But when scientists tell us that the world has 70% less bugs than it did back in just the 80s, well, that's pretty concerning. Unsettling things scientists don't want us to see. I mean, this one they probably don't mind us taking a peek into. But we don't talk about this nearly enough. These buggy dudes are vital for our crops. The movie Interstellar, for example, is about our future and future humans running out of crops. So we should have been listening to Christopher Nolan this entire time. I knew it. Go watch Dark Knight, there's probably some clues in there somewhere. We're too focused on robots gaining the ability to do parkour that we're forgetting the sad science as well. And finally, coming in at number 1, mad cow disease. While we've got our hands full of this COVID madness, let me just add another one there to top you up. I stumbled across this Reddit thread here. It was titled, Scientists of Reddit, what are some scary scientific discoveries that most of the public is unaware of? Yeah, I read through a bunch of them, pretty scary, but I found this gem and had to finish the list off. One reply got lots of feedback, tons of support as well, and there's a great deal of people who just may be carrying around mad cow disease. But we won't know for another decade, give or take. So, sit tight. Stay tuned, I guess. Mad cow disease from the 80s and 90s was due to cows being fed the remains of other animals. Pretty horrible stuff. People then ate their beef and consumed prions, a protein that can destroy the human brain, and it's thought that many people still might carry prions but won't know until they start experiencing the symptoms, which could be 10 to 50 years after consuming said contaminated meat. It has a really long incubation period, and you can also contract the prions from blood transfusions, which is the reason why so many UK citizens from that time period still aren't allowed to donate blood. Fun fact, this is a very real thing. And to answer your question, no, there is no cure, and it can kill you in just a few months. How's that for unsettling?